By the time the rain stopped, half the hillside was gone, 3 brand-new homes buried under a tide of mud, wood, and glass. I had warned them again and again, but the HOA didn't listen, and when it all came down, they sat in the rubble crying that no one had told them. But I had. I moved to Alder Ridge Estates 15 years ago after retiring from 22 years in the Army Corps of Engineers. I'd had my fill of deployments and disaster zones. I wanted quiet, just me, my 2 dogs, and the forest that stretched behind my house. 3 acres of hillside woods, pines, oaks, cedars, thick enough to drown out the world. It wasn't HOA land. It was deeded to me, my property, my sanctuary. I thought I could live the rest of my life in peace there. At first, the HOA barely bothered me. I kept my lawn-trimmed paid dues on time, nodded at neighbors when necessary. They worried about mailbox color and trash can placement. Fine, I could live with that, but the forest that was sacred, that was mine. The first warning came in bright plastic flags tied to branches, then the buzz of a drone circling overhead like it owned the place. Days later, a letter arrived on HOA stationery, smug as could be, Community Enrichment Plan. Expansion of walking trails, scenic overlook, vegetation management. Vegetation management. That's what they called bulldozing my forest. I went straight to their office in a strip mall by a frozen yogurt shop. Karen Prescott, the HOA president, met me with her helmet hair and blood-red lipstick, smiling like she already owned the hillside. "We're just cleaning up a fire hazard," she chirped, "making space for the community." I told her those trees were holding back thousands of tons of wet clay. I told her cutting them would destabilize the slope. She laughed. Said they'd had professional assessments. Said it was already voted on and I might want to consult a lawyer. Then she stood up, smile still plastered on, and walked me out like I was an inconvenience. Something in me shifted that day. I'd seen arrogance like hers in war zones, people thinking they could outmatch nature, ignoring the warnings until the ground itself taught them otherwise. I wasn't about to let it happen again. 2 weeks later, the trucks came. Diesel engines growled outside my back fence, and men in neon vests unloaded chainsaws like it was just another Tuesday. I rounded the corner and found Karen standing there in high-heeled boots, clipboard in hand. "What is this?" I asked. She didn't even look at me. "Phase 1 trail clearing," she said brightly. "Just brush today. Full removal starts Friday. You're on my land." Actually, she cut me off. According to the updated plat map, this falls under HOA easement rights. I could feel my jaw lock. That's a forest, and it's mine. Karen smirked, the kind of smirk that makes you want to punch something. "You're welcome to challenge it legally, but that won't stop progress in the meantime." Then she turned to the foreman and ordered them to start cutting. I walked away before I did something I'd regret, but the sound of saws chewing through brush echoed behind me like betrayal. That night, I dug out every document I had, deeds, survey maps, the old environmental report warning against destabilizing the slope. I scanned it all, sent it to my lawyer, even emailed the HOA politely informing them they were trespassing. No reply. Instead, the next morning, a violation notice taped to my door, unkempt yard. $200 fine. They were taunting me. Every day, after I watched trees that had stood for centuries fall and get hauled away like garbage. I took photos, videos. License plates. Karen wore sunglasses now, maybe to avoid eye contact, maybe to hide from what she was doing. Neighbors started whispering questions. Wasn't that my land? Hadn't it been protected? But none of them stood up. Not yet. Then I saw a crack in my retaining wall hairline, but new. Soil soft beneath it. My stomach dropped. I called Robert, a geotechnical engineer I'd served with. He tested the slope and gave me the truth I already knew: the roots were the only thing holding it together. If we get a storm, you're looking at a slide. Not just your yard, the whole row of homes below. I lay awake that night staring at the ceiling, wondering if maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was overreacting, clinging to trees like some bitter old man. The HOA had professionals right. Maybe I was just fighting ghosts from Afghanistan where every hillside looked ready to bury us. I almost convinced myself to let it go. Almost. Then I remembered Robert's words, remembered the forest bleeding under chainsaws, and I knew I couldn't stay silent. I printed 25 copies of my report, slipped them into mailboxes. I emailed the county-attached soil surveys and rainfall data. I even contacted an old friend, Erin Lowe, now an investigative journalist. She came with a cameraman filmed. The bare slope, shook her head and said, "It's like they ripped open a wound and stitched it with duct tape." That night she posted a teaser online, When HOA Ambition Meets Natural Disaster. It wasn't viral yet, but the fuse was lit. Karen responded with another fine. Unauthorized media activity. $500. It was laughable, really. They were trying to punish the rain for falling. And then the rain came. At first, just drizzle. Then days of it pounding the bare hillside. My French drains held barely but water-carved gullies through the mud where trees once anchored the soil. I documented everything, emailed it to the county-tagged news outlets, warned anyone who would listen. Some neighbors finally reached out. Our foundations wet, our sump pumps running non-stop. They were scared, but Karen still called me an alarmist. One night, I caught her SUV outside my fence. She handed me a manila envelope, an investigation notice accusing me of defamation, inciting unrest. I looked her dead in the eye, rain dripping from my hat brim. "You're threatening me while your slope is falling apart." "This is a warning," she snapped. "No," I said. "You did that the moment you cut those trees." 3 nights later, the ground gave way. It was around 2 a.m. Thunder shaking the sky, rain hammering my roof. I heard it, that deep groan of earth moving. Not thunder, not rain. The sound of weight letting go. I grabbed my flashlight, called 911. "This is Daniel Rains at 304 Willow Ridge. Mudslide imminent. Evacuate now." Then I ran. I banged on doors yelling, "Get out." 5 minutes, maybe less. Some listened. Some stared at me like I was crazy. Then I reached Karen's house. She opened the door in a silk robe, mascara streaked. "What the hell are you doing here? You need to evacuate, now. You're exaggerating again." And then it came a roar, like a freight train made of mud. Her face drained of color. We both turned to see a wall of earth ripping down the hillside, swallowing fences, mailboxes, whole porches. I grabbed her arm. "Run," and we dove behind a concrete wall as the flow thundered past. When it stopped, Karen sat in the mud, shaking, whispering the same words over and over. No one warned us. No one told us. I looked at her, cold, soaked, exhausted. "I told you," I said. Not with anger, just the truth. By dawn, 3 homes were buried, 2 more tilted off their foundations. Retaining walls gone, the overlook shattered. News vans swarmed in, cameras flashing. Headlines screamed, "Veteran warned, HOA ignored until disaster." My inbox flooded. Neighbors who once ignored me now begged for guidance. But I didn't feel vindicated. I felt tired. Days later, the emergency meeting packed the community gymnasium. Residents in mud-stained boots, insurance claims in hand, eyes full of betrayal. Karen walked in, late gray blazer hair pulled back tight. She stepped to the mic, voice trembling. "I want to say I'm sorry. What happened was a tragedy. We relied on professionals. No one could have predicted." "No?" I said, standing. The room went silent. I held up a printed email dated weeks before the slide. "I predicted it. Experts warned you. Reports warned you. This wasn't an act of God, it was negligence. You cleared that forest to build a view. And now the only view left is of what's broken." Silence hung heavy, then a slow clap started in the back, spreading until it filled the room. Not celebration, just solidarity. That night, the board suspended Karen. Within weeks, she resigned. The HOA crumbled under lawsuits, insurance drained dry. Karen moved out quietly, her name forever tied to the disaster she created. And me, I stayed. I looked out over what used to be my forest, now a scarred slope, and thought about everything it had cost. The HOA thought they owned the hill, that they could bend it to their will. But the truth was simpler, brutal, undeniable. The land doesn't care about votes or fines. It remembers what we forget. And if you ignore it long enough, it will remind you.